One song. That's all it took. A few quiet chords, a familiar melody, and suddenly millions of people were right back in their teenage bedrooms, staring at a TV screen, feeling everything all over again. But this time, the song didn't feel nostalgic. It felt heavy, because this wasn't just a cover, it was a goodbye. And the person who shared it wasn't a fan, it was the woman who had just lost her husband. What started as a simple tribute quickly turned into something far bigger, something that reopened old memories, exposed a private battle, and reminded everyone how fragile time really is. For an entire generation, there was no separating that song from the show. The moment the first notes of I Don't Want to Wait played, you knew exactly where you were. It wasn't just background music. It set the mood for every heartbreak, every coming-of-age realization, every moment that felt too big to understand at the time. Dawson's Creek turned that song into an emotional trigger, something that could instantly transport people back to their younger selves. And for years, it stayed frozen there, in reruns, playlists, and memory. Until now. Because hearing it again under these circumstances didn't feel comforting. It felt final. And that's when people realized this wasn't about nostalgia anymore. It was about loss.
When Kimberly Vanderbeek finally returned to social media, there was no long message, no explanation, no attempt to speak through grief. Instead, she let a single repost say everything. After days of silence following her husband's passing, she shared an acoustic cover of that same song, the one tied forever to his most iconic role. It felt deliberate, almost symbolic. Not a public statement, but a quiet acknowledgement of what the song now meant. To fans, it looked simple. To those paying attention, it felt devastating. Because this wasn't about a TV show or a theme song anymore. It was a widow choosing music when words were impossible. And once people pressed play, they realized the cover itself carried a weight no one was ready for. The cover didn't try to overpower the original. That's what made it hurt more. Stripped down, slow, and fragile, it sounded like it was holding back tears the entire time. The voice leading it belonged to Alana Springsteen, joined quietly by Sarah Bareilles and Lauren LaRue. No dramatic production, no big moment, just raw emotion. Within minutes, comments started flooding in from people admitting they couldn't finish the song. Others said it felt like losing a piece of their childhood all over again. What was meant to be a tribute turned into a shared grieving space, one where strangers were processing the same loss at the same time. And then something unexpected happened. Someone who had been connected to that song from the very beginning stepped in, and everything became even more emotional. Then the original voice behind the song appeared. Paula Cole, the woman who first gave I Don't Want to Wait its emotional weight decades ago, found the cover and left a simple comment. No long tribute, no dramatic statement, just a few words expressing tears, gratitude, and love for James and his family. For longtime fans, that moment landed hard. It felt like the past and present collapsing into one space, an artist acknowledging that her song had taken on a meaning far deeper than it ever had before. What was once a theme about growing up had quietly become a song about letting go. And as emotional as that exchange was, it only raised a bigger question. Because behind the tribute, behind the music, there was a reality most people had never seen coming. For years, the public only saw fragments of his life, smiles, interviews, occasional updates that suggested everything was fine. But behind the scenes, James Vanderbeek was fighting a battle he chose to keep private. Reports later confirmed he had been dealing with colorectal cancer, a diagnosis the family never turned into headlines or sympathy posts. There were no dramatic announcements, no public countdown, just quiet endurance. According to Kimberly, he faced his final days with courage, faith, and grace, words that now feel heavier knowing how much he carried without letting the world see it. Fans were stunned, not because of the illness itself, but because of how little anyone knew. And when the truth finally surfaced, it revealed something even more unsettling. The toll it had taken went far beyond the emotional.
Not long after the news became public, close friends of the family quietly launched a GoFundMe page, and that's when reality hit hard. The goal was set at $500,000, not for luxury or headlines, but to cover medical costs that had drained nearly everything. Despite doing everything possible to support James through his illness, the financial weight had become overwhelming. Kimberly and their 6 children were suddenly facing an uncertain future, trying to stay in their home while keeping some sense of normalcy intact. Within minutes, donations began pouring in. Within an hour, tens of thousands were raised. And by the time people realized what was happening, the number had already climbed into the millions. The speed shocked everyone. But what came next showed just how deeply James' impact had reached. The outpouring didn't stop with fans. Some of Hollywood's biggest names stepped in almost immediately. Zoe Saldana pledged a monthly donation of $2,500. The director of Wicked added $10,000, and then Steven Spielberg contributed $25,000. Within days, the total donations skyrocketed past $2 million, a figure that no one could have predicted. For the family, this wasn't just financial relief. It was proof of something deeper, that James's spirit had built a community strong enough to rally when it mattered most. Friends, fans, and strangers united, and in that wave of generosity, grief became something shared, almost tangible. And yet, even amid the donations and support, the family's message was clear. They needed space to mourn, to breathe, and to honor him on their own terms.
In the end, it's more than a song, more than a tribute, more than a viral moment. It's a reminder that the people behind the characters we love live full, complicated lives, and that loss can touch us all, even decades after a show ends. James Van Der Beek left behind more than a legacy on screen. He left memories, laughter, and a family navigating an impossible grief. And yet, through music, through kindness, and through the community that rallied around them, his spirit continues to connect people. One song brought a generation together once, and now it brings strangers, fans, and friends together again. Proof that love, memory, and shared humanity can endure, even in the face of heartbreak. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't the ones we see on screen, they're the ones we feel, together, in the quietest moments.